Why does the universe exist? Has it always existed, or was there a time before the universe came into being? Can the existence of the universe provide evidence for the existence of God? Let's find out. Welcome back to our series on evidence for the existence of God. In our previous videos, we've covered some of St. Thomas Aquinas' arguments for the existence of God, like the argument from motion and from efficient cause. If you haven't seen those videos, check them out by clicking on the link in the description. And if we have caused a positive effect on you through our videos, then don't forget to support us by liking our videos, subscribing to our channel, and hitting the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our videos. Also, do share our videos with your friends and family. We'd really appreciate it. Okay, so in this video, we'll be diving into another one of Aquinas' evidence for the existence of God, the argument from contingency. First, let's understand what the words contingent and necessary mean in this context. Now, have you ever wondered how something exists? Is it able to exist on its own, or is it dependent on something else to sustain itself? For example, a bird can exist freely in nature, but its existence is dependent on food, water, and oxygen. Without these things, the bird will fail to exist. Now, contingent beings are those which are dependent on something else for their existence. They don't have to exist, but since they do, there is something else which keeps them in existence. For example, many species of birds and animals like the dodo or the woolly mammoth or dinosaurs are all contingent beings because while they did exist at some point in the past, their existence isn't necessary. Their survival dependent on specific environmental conditions and resources which, when no longer available, led to their extinction. They can either exist or not exist. On the other hand, something is necessary when it is not contingent or cannot be different from what it is right now. For example, to form a square, it is necessary to have 4 sides. To create a painting, it is necessary to have something to paint with. It's just as impossible to draw a square with 3 or 5 sides as it is to make a painting without paint. Here, the 4 sides of the square or paint for the painting are necessary for the square and the painting's existence. So what does all this have to do with the universe? According to proponents for the contingency argument, the universe is contingent, meaning it relies on something else for its existence. It did not have to exist, but since it does exist right now, its existence must be dependent on some other necessary being. That necessary being is what proponents for the argument refer to as God. But how do we know that the universe isn't necessary? What if it must exist because that's just part of its nature? Well, let's examine some parts of the universe. Take the stars or planets, for example. They weren't always in existence. Scientists have found that stars are born and eventually die. They aren't fundamental to the universe's existence. But what about atoms or protons or neutrons? According to many scientists, even these basic elements came into existence around 1/10,000 of a second after the Big Bang. Before that point in time, they didn't exist, so they aren't necessary. But explaining why parts of the universe exist doesn't explain why the universe as a whole exists. You could also argue that our universe's existence is explained by another universe, and that universe came into existence by another universe, and so on. However, this doesn't explain why all the various universes exist in the first place. If the most basic and fundamental elements of the universe itself are not necessary, and if the existence of the universe as a whole also cannot explain itself and could possibly be dependent on other universes for its existence, then it follows that the universe is also not necessary. The universe or multiverse of universes would still need something else which is necessary to explain and sustain their existence. That necessary being would have to be something which is not the universe and which does not need something else to explain it. So if everything that begins to exist needs an explanation, then wouldn't God's existence also need to be explained? Well, there are 2 ways to explain something's existence. 1, something outside the being, and 2, something within the being. For example, let's say you're cooking some dinner and place a pan with some food on the stove. Now, after some time, you can feel the pan is pretty hot. Why? Because it's on the fire. But why is the fire hot? because that's the nature of fire. So one has an explanation outside of itself, while the other has an explanation because of its very nature. When it comes to God, the reason God exists is because existence or being is part of His nature. If God was limited by time or could be changed fundamentally, then it could be argued that God is a contingent being. But since immutability and timelessness are part of God's very nature, He is not dependent on anything else for existence. So, all contingent beings require a necessary being for its existence. For a being to be necessary, it must not depend on anything else. It can't be made up of matter or bound by time. It cannot be different in any way or be subject to change. This means that this necessary being must be infinite, immutable, and not lacking in anything. And the being that seems to fit this explanation is God. So what do you think about this? Do you believe that the contingency argument provides sufficient reason to believe God exists? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like our video, let us know by liking and subscribing to our channel. It really helps us a lot. Until next time.